Hello guys, I'm back from another video and today it's about what if Deku was experimented on, and also I'm really sorry that I didn't make a video yesterday because I was kinda sick, or more specifically I got a massive headache and kind of a fever, but I'm doing okay I guess now. Don't worry, it's not, the no virus, don't worry. Anyway, so in the last video we talked about how well, they started going to the USJ as they were also attended by another student, and this student was Melissa Shield. After a while of talking, and also talking about how they first met, being Izuku and Melissa, well, two girls in particular were kind of jealous. Mostly Todoroki, or should I say Shoka, and, well, a brand new girl. And this girl was Suyu Asui. So, when they did get there, they got attacked by the League of Villains, but Izuku stopped it in time. But unfortunately, Shigaraki escaped. So, after the USJ incident, well, Todoroki would want Izuku to join her to a little, new restaurant about soba, which Izuku decided to join. After a while of talking, well, both of them would actually feel a bit awkward because, well, Shoka would actually, not kinda, more like slightly hinted at that she's kind of in love with him. So, after that, they basically left, but Shoka is trying to think what she would do if they actually get, if they're allowed to, Anyway, so, that is basically what happened last episode. And so, let's talk about what happens next. So, we go to Izuku in his room as he gets a text from the school saying that they're not going to be having school for a few days because of the USJ incident. And they're going to have a few days off. Not only that, they're going to be training for a event known as the wait for a second. The event is called the Sports Festival. So, after Izuku was told of this, well, he was also told by this text or call or whatever or message from the UA academy or school. They were also told that they could definitely go to a certain place in the school known as the dorms if they want to, at least. So, after Endeavor saw this, Endeavor would want Shoka and Izuku to, well, go to the dorms, mostly because he doesn't want to see them, and also for more training for her. Or at least that's what he thinks. So, after being told of this, well, Shoka would gladly join. As for Izuku, he would also join as well. At least he would get some brand new room for his, brand new insects. And also a bit of Fuyumiski complaining about, all of the bug shite in the kitchen lately, especially with the cockroaches. So, after that, they started packing up their things as they say goodbye to Endeavor. So, when they did go to the dorms, they see everybody's there, including another student. This student is Melissa Shield, but also another person. It is Bakugo's childhood friend. Or in this case, enemy, should I say that. And this girl is... wait for a second. Izumi. And it seems that somebody's with her. In this case, a woman that looks exactly like her. So, when Izuku saw that, he just thought, it's probably her mother. But her mother would notice Izuku and she kind of stops in her tracks for a second. As she would think, is that my son? Why, my son that I just... as she was brought back to reality by her daughter, Izumi, or should I say, Izuku's actual, sister, as she would say this, "Hey, mom," as she would say this, yeah, Izumi, as she would say this, "Mom, I'm gonna be packing up all of my things, so can you help me?" as she would say this. Oh, yeah. As for Izuku, he starts carrying both his and, um, Shoka's bags by carrying it in his, like, extra limbs. As she would say this, being Todoroki, or should I say Shoka. Shoka would say this. Oh, thank you, Izuku. As Izuku would say this. Don't mention it, and besides, I guess you can say it's kind of like training. As she would say this. Elaborate? As he would say this. Well, I guess it's like, weight training, basically helping my other limbs. I mean, I kind of rarely use them, so. As she would say this. I guess. So, when they did go to their dorm room, they made it there. As it turns out, they're gonna be staying together. Oh boy, this is a recipe for a disaster. I'm waiting for that. So, apparently, the dorm rooms are going to be placed in a certain way. One boy and one girl. Jeez, I wonder why. Oh god, and for Izuku is apparently going to be staying in the same room as his sister. Yeah, this is definitely not going to be a wrong idea, I swear to god. Anyway, so, after they were told by this by Principal Nezu, well, Ezekiel would just sigh and say this. I guess this will have to work. As she would say this. Yeah, I guess so. So, after they started unpacking all of their things and started putting everything in their places, they started leaving as they see the rest of their class. Everybody starts talking about how they're paired up with a boy. Most of the girls are talking about this, until it gets to Izuku, as one of them would say this. So, who are you paired up with? As Izuku would say this. Well, it's my adopted sister, Shoka. As one of them would say this. So, your sister, your adopted sister, in fact, is actually going to be your roommate. As one of them would say this. This is definitely not going to be a, wait for a sec. This is definitely not going to be a bad idea, says one of them, as Izuku would say this. What do you mean? As he would say this. Have you heard of something called as one of them would just shuts him up and says, "Do not talk about that." Just like Ida would just like covering his mouth as he says, "I was about to say," as he would say, "Shut up." As Izuku would just be confused. As he would say this. Anyway, as he would get this large looking box, as everybody would say this. What is that? As Shoko would say this. You better be careful because. As he would say this. Alright, you can come out now. As several insects would come out of the box. As everybody would just say, "The hell is that?" As Izuku would say this. Oh, these are just my insecty friends. As several cockroaches and other insects would start crawling around his arm, as everybody would just be grossed out, including Momo. Just like, oh god. And for, well, a certain girl, aka Suyu, let's just say she's just like, give me that fucking bug. Give me those fucking bugs. There's just like, she's just literally, when she saw those bugs, she just thought of a fucking meal. Because remember, she's part frog. So, when she saw all of the bugs, she started doing the whole like frog thing and starts launching her tongue at them. As Izuku would see this, as he would say this, "Don't you dare!" As she would say this, I can't. It's just so good." As Izuku would say this, "No." As he would start controlling all of his bugs to go into his room immediately. As Suyu is basically like eating the rest of them that didn't basically go into his room. All of his bugs. Like, some of his bugs are basically gone after that day. Just imagine Izuku just like crying, and one of his eyes over here just like it just like starts twitching. So, basically, after that, well, it's basically nighttime. As everybody starts planning dinner, Izuku would plan dinner with the help of Shoka, making some cold soba for her and for some regular like soba for them. As for the rest of like class 1A, they would also get some food. So, after finished eating, they started going back to their rooms, including Izuku and, well, Shoka. When they did go to their room, well, both of them are basically, together in one room. And they're not even blood related. Wait for a second. Sorry about that. So, and they're not even blood related. So, this is definitely a recipe for disaster. And it's not helping that, Endeavor decided to give them just one bed that both of them can clearly sleep in. Endeavor, you're not even subtle anymore. So, Endeavor would just say in the note, just be careful, winky face. And that note is just for Izuku. As Izuku would just say to himself, God damn it, why Endeavor? As Shoka would say this, so I guess I should probably sleep in the bed. You can sleep on the couch. As he would say this, yeah, probably for the best. So, he would start going to the couch as he would start sleeping in it. Or more specifically, he would start cocooning himself, like he starts wrapping himself similar to like Aizawa with his sleeping bag, but in, regular webs, not the poisonous ones. As both of them would fall asleep. The next day comes as Izuku would wake up as he would feel something heavy on him. Shoka is obviously on her bed, or at least both of their beds, because apparently they were supposed to meant to sleep together in one bed, but he didn't want to because doesn't want to have Alabama on the shit. As when he wakes up and feels something on top of him, he would take off his blanket as he would see Melissa. Yeah, Melissa's completely on top of him. And he can clearly see her, rack. Izuku would just why is this happening to me? As one person would open the door, as both of them, or more specifically, wait for a second. Shoka would wake up as they hear a girl's voice. Hey Melissa, are you gonna go back? As, Shoka would wake up as she says this. What? As she would look over and see Melissa on top of Izuku. Oh no. And let's just say, Shoka, after seeing that, let's just say Izuku's face, the only thing that's not red is no longer the grayish skin that he has. And it's not these things over here, these plates. Yeah. They in class or more specifically in class 1A's dorm, they heard a large smacking sound as they see two girls coming out of there, being Izumi and Melissa. As one of them would say this, wait, this is not supposed to be class 1B's storm, right? Says, wait for a second. Says Kominari. As Kirishima would say this, hey, girls, what are you doing here? This is not class 1B's dorms. As she would say this, being, Izumi. Yeah, but apparently Melissa wanted to sleep with, Izuku. As everybody, when they heard that, interpreted that as another way. As, Bakugo would say this. What did you just say? As Izumi would say this. No, not in that way, Bakugo. Pervert. No, it's she wanted to sleep with Izuku, as in take a nap there. As they would still hear slapping as they would, Well, imagine what's happening there. Let's go back to Izuku. Izuku is currently being slapped to death. He's literally being thrown ice at, well, Todoroki as she says this. You damn disgusting pervert. As he would say this. It wasn't my fault. I didn't know that she was in my room. As she would say this. You're lying. You're lying. As she starts creating a sword made out of ice as he starts chasing him through the dorms. As Izuku is basically screaming, saying, "Help me for God's sake!" Uh, so, that morning was hectic. So, let's go to breakfast. Izuku is currently making breakfast for everybody with the help of, wait for a second, with the help of Jiro and Bakugo. As Izuku would say this, I didn't know that you're able to cook that well, Jiro. As she would say this, well, I did help my mother once, and I'm actually quite good at it, especially with music. As she would say this, music? Huh. As Bakugo would say this, hey, you. As he would say this, yeah, Bakugo? As he would say this, can you give me that thing over there? As he would say this, a knife? As he would say this, yes, obviously. As he would say this, sure. As he would give him the knife, as Bakugo would say this, so, how did that ballistic girl go into your room? As he would say this, I didn't know, I was just like asleep at the time. As one of them being, well, Kirishima would say this, maybe she stuck into the window, or maybe, as, wait for a second. Kaminari would say this. No. Maybe she made a copy of the key and basically unlocked the door by that. As Izuku would say this. That's the most dumbest theory that you can think of. As he would say this. Hey, at least I thought of something. As Izuku would say this. First of all, I don't want to mention that. And second of all, how did she get the idea of doing that in the first place? Let's go back to Melissa, as she says this. Making a copy of Izuku and wait for a second, and Shoka's door was quite easy, as um well well wait for a second. E God dang it, I meant her name was shit, God. I'm sorry about that. I meant Izuka. God dang it. As she would say this, how did you get enough time to do that in the first place? As she would say this, oh, I have my ways. As she gives a creepy ass smile. As, well, Izuka would say this, I can't tell if you're crazy or you're obsessed. As she would say this, well, I guess you could say both. But still. As she would say this, why? And by the way, that Izuku guy, I heard that he's close to me. As she would say this, I mean, kind of, but if you remove those insecty like bits onto his body, you could definitely see the resemblance. As she would say this, but still, if my mother did have, like, another child just like me, then, as she would say this, it's probably just a coincidence. I mean, wait. I remember that I remembered he told me back in the day that he was just adopted. So maybe it's just like a little coincidence. As she would say this, agreed. So, we moved to Izuku, basically just like training for the sports, basically making more bugs and also creating more powerful, more and much more dangerous insects, and still training with his, well, centispear. After a while of training, he would stop as he would start grabbing a bottle of water and starts chugging it. As he would say this, that was tiring. As would look over and see him, as he would say this, hey, Mita bro. as he would say this. Mito, bro? As he would just say this. Well, I think that was a cool nickname. And besides, I think Midoriya? Yeah, I think it's quite a nice name for you. As he would say this. Why Midoriya? As he would say this. Well, Bakugo's friend over there, the green-haired one? Yeah, the one that looks similar to you? Her last name is Midoriya, so why not call you Midoriya, bro? Or Mido, bro? As he would say this. It's a stupid name. Just call me Todoroki-kun. As he would say this. How about Totobro? As he would say this. Sure. As he would say this. So, what are you doing? As he would say this. Obviously training. So, what do you want? As he would say this. Well, I would ask. Would you want to train me? As he would say this. Want to train? As he would say this. Yes, you're so powerful. And because you're a part of the Aprishiki project, that makes you super cool. You're so awesome and manly. As he would say this. I guess I should have some fun. Well, I guess we can fight. Now, get ready for, well, some stretching, and then we can start our match. As he would say this. Sure. As both them would start stretching. So, Ezekiel would start stretching his, insectile limbs, as he would start, telling his bugs to start, fixing up the, well, you know, his carapace. As in carapace, I mean the, bug-like, shell that he has. After a while, it's finally time for them to start getting ready for their match. As he would say this. Are you ready? As Kirishima would say this. Ready as always. As they start charging each other. As they start fighting. So, Izuku would summon in his, Centispear as he starts charging towards him, as Kirishima would start hardening his skin. So, after a while of fighting, he would start using his webs to start tangling him up, as he would say this. How do you like that? As he would say this. Take this! As he would snap, the webs into normal ass, webs. As he would say this. You're strong, but try and beat this. As his body his body would start being encased in more of, the carapace, to the point that he gains, his mask, being, the insectile mask that he uses for his hero costume. As he starts charging towards him, as he uses it, he starts using his insectile limbs to basically start cutting him down. As he would say this. My hardening is not working that much anymore. As he would say this. Had enough. As he would say this. Yeah, we should stop now. I'm quite tired. As he would say this. Yeah, me too. As they stopped training, as they started going to the kitchen to start getting their, some more drinks. Mostly some energy drinks, as after they finished drinking, Ezekiel would look over and see some protein powder. As he would say this, do you want some? As Kirishima would say this, oh sure. So, after making some, protein drinks, they started just looking on to the TV as they started watching some shows. As they would actually make a great friendship. In fact, even greater than Bakugo. In fact, they didn't even become friends. Kirishima tried to become friends with Bakugo, but that turned out to be a toxic relationship, so yeah. So, they basically became fast friends after that. And so, Ezekiel would start going back to his room as he's completely tired. As, Todoroki or Shoka would say this. So, how was your stupid thing? As he would say this. You mean training? As she would say this. Yeah. Are you still pretty much mad at me for... As she would say this. Yeah, as he would say this. First of all, it wasn't my fault. And it turned out that she did basically came into my room. As she would say this. I'm still not believing you. As he would say this. I'll give you some free soba. My charge. I meant, my treat. As he would say this. I meant she. Fine. As he would say this. Okay, then, guess I'll bring some as she would say this. But, as he would say this. But what? As she would say this. If you, slept with me tonight. As she would say this. Whoa, wait, we're siblings. As she would say this. No, not like that. I mean, like, I want to sleep with you. As in, I want you to cuddle me tonight. As he would say this. Oh, I see. Fine. So, after dinner, after eating the soba that basically Izuku paid for, they would start going into the same bed as they started cuddling each other. As Izuku would say this. It feels weird. As she would say this. For being a sadistic monster, you actually feel quite warm. As he would say this. Maybe because you've turned up the thermostat to 1,000. As she would say this. Just come a bit closer. As both of them would go to sleep. So, I hope you liked the video. Comment and subscribe. And I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye.